The chitinous aliens guffawed at the puny fleshy humans, bragging about how their mighty space fleet would soon devour the apes, not realizing the rage building inside every human as they plotted to make the alien scum choke on their hubris and pay for their atrocities in blood. Bruce Mitchell slammed down his glass, the cracks spreading like the fire inside him. As he listened to the reptilian freak Rigor boast about slaughtering thousands of humans in the Gliese system, damn Pakled had been stealing human worlds for decades. The bastards controlled half the space lanes now. Bruce kept his head down, not wanting to start shit in a seedy dive like this. A news flash splashed across the grimy bar screens, grabbing Bruce's attention. Pakled warships swarming Earth cities, energy beams cutting through buildings, bug soldiers storming the rubble. Rigor and his lackeys cackled, toasting to the destruction. Bruce's vision blurred red. His glass shattered against the screen. He bolted for his ship, a cold fury building inside him. It was time to show these slimy pricks what happened when you pissed off mankind. The comms crackled. All human forces were ordered to Epsilon Eridani. Time to counterattack. Bruce powered up his weapons. If this strike failed, Earth was gone, and humans might be next. He'd make damn sure those arrogant slugs never laughed again. Bruce dropped out of FTL on the outskirts of Epsilon Eridani, his ship shaking as it decelerated. Scanners lit up with contacts. The system was packed with human vessels of all kinds. Sleek military cruisers formed the backbone of the fleet, but civilian ships had been pressed into service too. Freighters loaded with railguns instead of cargo. Mining rigs with their drills replaced by torpedo tubes. Even a few luxury yachts, their wealthy owners having donated them to the cause. As Bruce guided his ship towards the fleet center, his comms crackled. "Bruce Mitchell, this is EDS Retribution Actual. You are cleared for docking in Bay 4. He recognized that voice. Admiral Nora Sato, the woman tasked with leading this desperate counter-offensive. Locking into the flagship's docking clamps, Bruce was greeted by a grim-faced Admiral Sato as he stepped aboard. "Mitchell, glad you made it. Walk with me." She set off at a brisk pace, and Bruce fell into step beside her. "Here's the deal," Sato began without preamble. "The Pakled have hit Earth hard. We need to buy the home fleet time to regroup and fortify, so we're going to rip a page from the Pakled playbook and go after their supply lines." She tapped a display, bringing up a star map. "We've identified their main resupply hub in this sector. We hit that and we hurt them, but that's just phase 1. She met Bruce's gaze. "The real mission is taking out their homeworld's defenses. We knock those out and the bulk of the fleet can strike at Pakledia Prime directly. A decapitation blow." Sato stopped, turning to face Bruce fully. "I'll be leading the diversionary strike, but I need someone to head the covert team for phase 2, someone with a history of unorthodox thinking and getting results. That's you, Mitchell. You'll take a stealth shuttle, infiltrate Pakledia and neutralize those planetary guns. The fate of Earth may very well rest on your shoulders. Think you're up for it." Bruce's jaw clenched. The Pakled had taken too much already. It was time to bring the fight to them. "Just point me at 'em, Admiral. I'll make sure those defenses are rubble by the time the fleet arrives." Sato nodded, a hint of a smile ghosting across her face. "Knew I could count on you." Turning to the bridge crew, she barked out orders. "All ships, prepare for FTL jump to target coordinates. Covert team, to your shuttle. It's time we showed the Pakled what happens when you mess with humanity." But even as the fleet readied itself for the jump, alarms blared across the bridge. "Admiral," a sensor operator called out. "Long-range scanners have picked up an incoming Pakled warship. It's the Mauler, ma'am. Rigor's ship." A hush fell over the bridge. The Mauler was infamous, responsible for the destruction of entire human colonies. Rigor himself was known for his brutality and complete lack of mercy. Sato's expression hardened. Change of plans. "All ships engage the Mauler. We can't let it report our position. Covert team, proceed to your shuttle and prepare for immediate departure." As Bruce raced through the corridors of the Retribution towards the hangar bay, he could feel the deck shuddering beneath his feet as the fleet opened fire. Explosions bloomed in the void as human and Pakled ships traded blows. Strapping himself into the stealth shuttle's pilot seat, Bruce watched through the viewports as the battle unfolded. The human fleet fought with desperate ferocity, but the Maulers' superior technology was taking its toll. Ships burned and cracked apart under the onslaught. But then a cheer went up over the comms. A lucky shot from the Retribution had crippled the Maulers' engines. It listed in space, unable to maneuver, though its guns still spat death. "Covert team, you are go for launch," Sato's voice crackled over the comms. "Godspeed, Mitchell, give 'em hell." As the shuttle leapt from the hangar bay, slipping past the raging battle and engaging its FTL drive, Bruce made a silent vow. He would see Rhaegor pay for every human life he'd taken. The Pakled would learn the true depths of human resolve. The stars stretched into lines as the shuttle made the jump to Pakledia, undetected by the alien sensor nets. The battle for Earth's survival had only just begun. The stealth shuttle's proximity alarms jolted Bruce from his ruminations. They were approaching Pakledia Prime, the heart of the enemy's territory. But before they could begin their covert mission, a distress signal flashed across the comms from a nearby moon. "Bruce, sensors are picking up Pakled ships attacking a settlement on the surface," his pilot reported. "Looks like a refugee camp, mostly humans." Bruce's hands clenched into fists. Those were his people down there, families torn apart by this war. "Take us in," he ordered. "We're not leaving them to the Pakled." "But our orders—" "I'll take the heat," Bruce cut in. "Just get us there." The shuttle banked hard, diving into the moon's atmosphere. As they approached the settlement, the scale of the attack became clear. Pakled dropships were disgorging troops, their energy weapons cutting through the makeshift buildings. Screams echoed over the comms. Bruce was out of his seat before the shuttle touched down, his team scrambling to follow. They hit the ground running, Bruce in the lead as they charged towards the battle. "Aim for the dropships," he shouted over the chaos. "Cut off their reinforcements." His team opened fire, their weapons spitting plasma at the Pakled ships. The aliens responded in kind, and soon the air was alight with crisscrossing energy beams. Bruce ducked and weaved, his shots finding their mark with practiced precision. But the Pakled kept coming, heedless of their losses. For every one that fell, 2 more seemed to take their place. A cry of pain drew Bruce's attention. Marcus, his second-in-command and longtime friend, had taken a hit. He was down, clutching his side as blood seeped between his fingers. Bruce was at his side in an instant, dragging him into cover. "Hold on, Marcus," he urged. "We'll get you out of here." But Marcus shook his head, his face pale. "Too late for that," he gasped. "You need to finish the mission." "Not without you," Bruce insisted. "Bruce," Marcus grasped his hand, his grip weak. "It's been an honor. Give 'em hell for me." And with a final shuddering breath, he was gone. Bruce bowed his head, grief and rage warring inside him. Around him the battle still raged, but it was clear they were losing ground. Half his team was down, and the Pakled just kept coming. Just as he was about to order a retreat, a small figure darted out from the rubble. A young girl, her face streaked with dirt and tears. She ran straight to Bruce, heedless of the weapons fire. "Please," she begged, "you have to help my father." Bruce started to usher her to safety, but her next words stopped him cold. "He was a spy," she said. "He found out about a secret Pakled weapon, but they caught him. Please, you have to save him." A secret weapon. That could change everything. Bruce's mind raced. If they could get that intel. He made his decision. "Where is he?" "A labor camp not far from here," the girl said. "I can show you." Bruce nodded. "All right, but we need to move fast." Gathering his remaining team, Bruce followed the girl's directions. They approached the labor camp cautiously, the towering fences and armed guards a stark contrast to the devastated settlement. Sneaking inside was no easy feat, but they managed it. The conditions within were appalling. Emaciated prisoners, brutal overseers, and the stench of despair heavy in the air. They found the girl's father in an isolation cell, his body broken from torture. The data chip, he whispered through cracked lips. Hidden in... He shuddered, his breath rattling in his chest. Bruce leaned close, straining to catch his final words, but it was too late. The man was gone. Bruce clenched his jaw, fresh determination surging through him. They had the location of the data. Now they just had to find it and get off this hellish moon. And then he vowed silently, he would make the Pakled pay for every life they'd taken. He would find this secret weapon and turn it against them. No matter the cost. Bruce's plasma rifle whined as he fired shot after shot at the Pakled guards. His team pushed forward, their boots pounding on the labor camp's metal grating. They reached the shuttle bay, taking cover behind supply crates as more guards poured in. "Get that shuttle powered up," Bruce shouted to his tech expert Jenna. She sprinted to the nearest craft, her fingers flying over the control panel. Bruce and the others laid down suppressing fire, the air thick with the stench of ozone and scorched flesh. The girl's father, barely conscious, was slung over the shoulder of Bruce's medic, Kai. "We're in," Jenna yelled as the shuttle's engines roared to life. They piled inside, Bruce covering their retreat. As the shuttle lifted off, Bruce armed the explosives he'd planted in the camp's generator. The shockwave rocked the shuttle as they cleared the moon's atmosphere. Bruce watched grimly as the camp went up in a ball of flame, the force field containing the prisoners flickering and dying. In the shuttle's cramped medbay, Kai worked frantically to stabilize the girl's father. The man's eyes fluttered open, his hand gripping Bruce's arm with surprising strength. "The data," he rasped. "The decimator, you have to stop it." He relayed a set of coordinates before his eyes rolled back, his body going slack. Kai looked up, shaking his head. The man was gone. Bruce clenched his jaw, turning to Jenna. "Get us to those coordinates. We're not letting his death be in vain." They retrieved the data cache, the holographic schematics of the decimator painting a chilling picture. The battleship was a behemoth, bristling with planet-cracking cannons. "There," Bruce pointed to a vulnerability in the ship's reactor core. "That's our way in. We'll need to infiltrate the construction site, get aboard that monster, and blow the reactor." The plan was met with grim nods. They all knew the odds they faced, but they also knew the cost of failure. As they navigated the star lanes, alarms suddenly blared. "Proximity alert," Jenna reported, her face pale. "It's the Mauler. Rhaegor's found us." The Pakled warship loomed on the view screen, its weapons already charging. Bruce wrenched the controls, sending the shuttle into a desperate spiral. "Strap in," he yelled. "This is going to get bumpy." The shuttle wove and dodged, the Mauler's cannon fire searing past the viewport. Bruce gritted his teeth, pouring every ounce of skill into staying one step ahead of Rhaegor. They skimmed the surface of a gas giant, using the planet's magnetic field to mask their signature. The Mauler swept past, losing track of its prey for just a moment, but it was enough. Bruce punched the hyperdrive, the stars stretching into lines as they made the jump to the decimator's location. They dropped out of FTL in a debris field, the shattered remains of a moon drifting past the viewport. And there, rising from the rubble like a dark god, was the decimator. Its hull seemed to swallow the light, a void in the shape of a ship. As they watched, a seam opened along its flank, a maw of crackling energy. The beam lanced out so bright it seared Bruce's retinas. When his vision cleared, the moon was gone, reduced to dust. A cold dread settled in Bruce's gut. This was what they were up against. This was the fate that awaited Earth if they failed. He looked to his team, seeing the same realization in their eyes. They were humanity's last hope, facing impossible odds. But they were not alone. Across the stars, in every corner of human space, people were fighting, buying them time with their lives. Bruce squared his shoulders, his resolve hardening into a diamond edge. The Pakled had sown the wind. Now they would reap the whirlwind. "Take us in," he ordered. "It's time we finished this." The stolen Pakled shuttle shuddered as Bruce guided it into the decimator's cavernous hangar bay. As the craft touched down, he glanced at his team, Jenna, Kai, and the handful of survivors from the labor camp raid. Their faces were grim, etched with determination. You all know the plan, Bruce said, his voice steady despite the tension coiled in his gut. We split up, plant the charges, and rendezvous back here. Stay sharp and watch each other's backs. These bastards won't go down easy. The team nodded, checking their weapons one final time. As the shuttle's ramp lowered, they fanned out, disappearing into the bowels of the massive ship. Bruce headed for the reactor, his boots ringing on the metal grating. The corridors were eerily quiet, the only sound the distant thrum of the ship's engines. Then a flicker of movement caught his eye. Bruce whirled, plasma rifle at the ready, just as a hulking form lunged from the shadows. It was a pack-led soldier, but not like any Bruce had seen before. The creature was massive, its muscles bulging beneath chitinous armor. Its eyes gleamed with a feral intelligence as it charged, faster than anything that size had a right to move. Bruce fired, the plasma bolt sizzling against the soldier's armored hide. It barely slowed, slamming into him with bone-crushing force. They tumbled to the deck, grappling in a tangle of limbs. The pack-led's claws raked across Bruce's chestplate, leaving deep gouges in the metal. Bruce drove his knee into the creature's midsection, feeling chitin crack beneath the blow. The pack-led hissed, its mandibles clicking in fury. Bruce rolled, coming up in a crouch, his rifle leveled at the soldier's head. The plasma bolt took it between the eyes, burning through flesh and bone. The pack-led dropped, its body twitching. Bruce staggered to his feet, his breath coming in ragged gasps. His comms crackled to life, urgent voices overlapping. They're everywhere. Some kind of super soldier. Fall back, fall! The transmission cut off in a burst of static. Bruce cursed, sprinting down the corridor. If his team was facing these enhanced pack-led throughout the ship. He keyed his comms. Jenna, Kai, report. A moment of silence, then Jenna's voice, strained but alive. We're pinned down near the port weapons array. These things, they just keep coming. Hold position, Bruce ordered. I'm on my way. But as he rounded the corner, he skidded to a halt. A dozen pack-led super soldiers blocked the passage, their eyes glinting with predatory hunger. Bruce raised his rifle, a battle cry on his lips. He charged, plasma bolts flashing as the pack-led surged to meet him. It was a brutal, desperate fight. Bruce fought with every ounce of skill and strength he possessed, the narrow corridor becoming a kill box filled with the stench of seared flesh and spilled blood. But for every enhanced soldier he cut down, another seemed to take its place, an unending tide of genetically engineered killers. Bruce's armor was battered, his body bruised and bleeding beneath the plating. In his ear, Jenna's voice crackled over the comms, laced with pain. Bruce, we can't hold them, there's too many. Bruce gritted his teeth, blasting a hole through a pack-led's chest. Get to the rendezvous point, I'll draw them off. But... Go, Bruce roared. That's an order. He could only pray they'd make it as he turned and ran, the pounding footsteps of the pack-led echoing behind him. Bruce raced through the decimator's twisting corridors, the super soldiers always just a step behind. His lungs burned, his muscles screamed for rest, but he pushed on. He had to buy his team time. As he rounded a corner, he found himself in a massive chamber, catwalks crisscrossing above a pulsing energy core, the main reactor. Bruce pulled the explosive charges from his pack, hurrying to set them at key structural points. The decimator shuddered, distant explosions reverberating through its hull. His team must have succeeded in sabotaging the weapons and engines. Just as he was about to place the final charge, a voice cut through the chamber. Impressive, human. You've caused me quite a bit of trouble. Bruce spun, coming face to face with Rigor. The pack-led commander loomed over him, his eyes glinting with malice. But it ends here, Rigor snarled. He lunged faster than Bruce could blink. They collided in a clash of armor and flesh, trading blows with brutal force. Rigor was inhumanly strong, his augmented physiology granting him speed and power beyond any normal pack-led. Bruce staggered back, blood trickling from a gash above his eye. Rigor pressed the advantage, his clawed fists hammering at Bruce's defenses. But Bruce wasn't about to give up. not with so much at stake. He countered, using his smaller size and agility to slip inside Rigor's guard. He drove his fist into the packled's throat, feeling cartilage crunch. Rigor reeled back, choking, but Bruce didn't let up. He rained down blows, targeting the weak points in Rigor's armor. The packled commander roared in fury, lashing out with a backhand that sent Bruce flying. He hit the catwalk hard, the metal grating buckling beneath him. Rigor stalked forward, looming over Bruce's prone form. "Pathetic," he spat. "You really thought you could defeat me? Defeat the packled empire?" Bruce pushed himself to his knees, his battered body screaming in protest. He looked up at Rigor, a bloody grin splitting his face. "No," he said, his voice raw, "but I can damn well make sure you go down with us." With a final desperate lunge, Bruce tackled Rigor. They crashed through the catwalk's railing, plummeting towards the pulsing reactor core below. As they fell locked in a deadly embrace, Bruce's hand found the detonator for the explosives. He looked into Rigor's eyes, seeing the realization dawn. "For Earth," Bruce whispered, and he pressed the button. The world went white. Bruce twisted, slamming Rigor into a plasma conduit. The packled howled as searing energy engulfed him, his chitinous armor melting. Bruce staggered back, his own suit scorched and tattered. Rigor lashed out, claws raking across Bruce's chest plate. Bruce hissed in pain, feeling blood well beneath the rent metal. He retaliated with a brutal uppercut, feeling Rigor's jaw crack. The packled reeled, stunned. Bruce pressed his advantage, raining down blows, driving Rigor back. With a final desperate heave, he hurled the commander into the reactor's containment field. Rigor screamed as the energy field flayed him, his flesh sizzling. Bruce didn't wait to watch him die. He limped to the reactor core, every step agony, and slammed the final charge into place. Alarms shrieked as the detonation sequence began. Bruce turned, staggering towards the exit. The corridors blurred, his vision tunneling. He could hear the reactor pulsing behind him, the explosives ticking down. He burst into the hangar, his breath ragged. The shuttle waited, engines hot. His team huddled at the ramp, weapons ready. "Bruce!" Jenna cried, relief and fear warring on her face. Bruce stumbled up the ramp, his legs giving out. Kai and Jenna hauled him aboard, the hatch slamming shut behind them. "Go!" Bruce rasped, blood bubbling on his lips. The shuttle leapt forward, engines screaming. Behind them, the decimator shuddered, explosions rippling across its hull. They hit the atmosphere, the shuttle bucking. Bruce clung to a seat, his vision graying. The sky filled with light as the decimator tore itself apart, a sun blossoming in the void. The shockwave hit, alarms blaring. The shuttle spun, G-forces crushing them. Bruce blacked out, his last thought a prayer that his team would survive. He woke to cheers, the shuttle shaking, not from damage and from celebration. "We did it," Jenna laughed, tears streaming. "The decimator, it's gone." Bruce managed a smile, his body one vast ache. They'd struck a blow the packled would never forget. News of their victory spread like wildfire. Across human space, resistance cells launched attacks, emboldened by the decimator's fall. Packled forces reeled, their advance faltering. But the war wasn't over. It had only just begun. On the colony of New Haven, air raid sirens wailed. Packled ships darkened the sky, their hulls glistening with unfamiliar pods. The pods burst over the city, raining down viscous fluid. Where it touched, flesh sizzled and melted. Screams filled the streets as people dissolved, their bodies liquefying. Within hours, the city was a necropolis, its buildings draped in reeking sludge. The packled had unleashed a horror beyond imagining, a bio-weapon that left millions dead. The packled would not go quietly. If they couldn't have human space, they'd see it burn, and humanity would learn the true price of defiance. Bruce grunted as the medic stitched the gash on his forehead, the numbness from the anesthetic not quite masking the pain. His body was a patchwork of bruises and burns, a testament to the hell he'd endured aboard the decimator. But even as his wounds healed, The scars on humanity's collective psyche only deepened. The pack-led bioweapon had struck without warning or mercy. Cities choked on the corpses of the liquefied, the air thick with the stench of death, hospitals overflowed, people screaming as their flesh melted from their bones. Governments collapsed, social order disintegrated. It was a horror beyond imagining, a nightmare made real. In the chaos, a message had reached Bruce, a summons from the shadows. Phantom Squad, they called themselves, the last bastion of hope in a galaxy gone mad. They needed him, needed his skills, his resolve. For in the ashes of the colonies, a whisper had emerged, a cure, a way to fight back against the Packled's monstrous creation. But to find it, they would have to go into the heart of darkness itself. Bruce stood before the assembled members of Phantom Squad, the dim light of the briefing room casting their faces in harsh relief. Hardened soldiers and haunted scientists, each bearing the scars of the war in their own way. The Pakled have a research facility on the edge of the Saragos Nebula, Bruce said, his voice rough with exhaustion and anger. Our intel suggests that's where they developed the bioweapon, and where they're holding the key to stopping it. He tapped a command, and a holographic display flickered to life, showing a schematic of the facility. It won't be easy. The place is a fortress, guarded by their best, and we'll have to navigate the nebula itself, a maze of anomalies and electromagnetic storms. That's not all, a grizzled soldier named Tanner spoke up. We've got reports of mercenaries in the area, hired guns working for the Pakled. Mean bastards, the lot of them. Bruce nodded grimly. We'll deal with them as they come, but our priority is that data. We get in, we get it, and we get out. No heroics, no diversions. Too much is riding on this. The journey to the Saragos Nebula was a harrowing one. The Phantom Squad's ship, battered by the anomalies that swirled like angry ghosts. Consoles sparked, bulkheads groaned, but they pushed on, Bruce's hands steady on the controls. They were nearing the facility when the attack came, a swarm of mercenary fighters descending like locusts. Bruce threw the ship into a dizzying spin, laser fire stitching the void around them. Garza, Tanner, on the guns, he barked, wrestling with the controls. Blow those bastards out of the sky. The ship shuddered as the gunners opened fire, the mercenaries' shields flaring under the onslaught. One by one they burst into flame, their wreckage spinning into the nebula's embrace. But the fight had taken its toll, the ship's engine sputtering, its hull breached in a dozen places. They limped into the facility's docking bay, Bruce's knuckles white on the controls. They spilled out into the corridors, weapons ready, scanning for threats, but what they found was worse than any ambush. The holding cells were filled with the bioweapons victims, their skin blistered and weeping, their eyes vacant with agony. Men, women, children, the Packlet had spared no one in their experiments. Among the prisoners was a woman, her once white lab coat stained with blood and worse. She looked up as they entered, her eyes fever-bright. "Dr. Lena Sorensen," she rasped. "Tell me you're here to end this nightmare." Bruce knelt beside her, his voice gentle. "We're here for the cure, Doctor, the data you were working on." Sorensen nodded, her hands shaking as she keyed in a sequence on a nearby console. "It's all here," she whispered. "Everything you need, but you have to hurry. They're coming." No sooner had the words left her lips than the alarms began to blare, the facility's lights pulsing red. Bruce cursed, grabbing the data drive and hauling Sorensen to her feet. "We've got to move," he growled. "Tanner, Garza, get these people to the ship. The rest of you with me will buy them time." They raced through the corridors, the sounds of battle echoing behind them. Pakled soldiers poured from every doorway, their weapons spitting fire. Bruce and his team met them head-on, their own guns roaring in defiance. They were almost to the docking bay when a figure stepped from the shadows, a nightmare given flesh. It was Rega, but not as Bruce had last seen him. The Pakled's body was a twisted fusion of metal and muscle, his eyes glowing with an unholy light. "You!" Regor snarled, his voice a metallic rasp. "I should have known you'd come like a fly to rotting meat." Bruce raised his rifle, his finger tightening on the trigger. "This ends now, Rega. one way or another. The Pakled laughed, a sound like grinding gears. "Oh, it will end, but not for me." He lunged faster than any living thing had a right to be. Bruce fired, the shot sparking off Rieger's armored hide. They crashed together, fists and fury, rolling across the blood-slicked floor. The battle raged through the facility, alarms screaming, fires raging out of control. Bruce and Rhaegar traded blows, neither giving quarter, neither backing down. For in the end it was a moment of pure chance that decided it. A ruptured coolant line, a spray of super-chilled liquid. It hit Rhaegar full in the face, and the Pakled howled in agony, his augmented flesh cracking and splintering. Bruce didn't hesitate. He tackled Rhaegar, driving him back into the yawning maw of a cryo-containment chamber. With a final desperate heave, he slammed the door shut, the locks engaging with a hiss of hydraulics. Rhaegar screamed, a sound that cut off abruptly as the chamber flooded with freezing mist. Through the frosted viewport, Bruce could see the Pakled's face, twisted in a rictus of hate, his eyes promising a reckoning. But for now it was over. Bruce sagged against the chamber, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The data was secure, the prisoners freed. They had what they needed to fight back. But as he looked at Rhaegar's frozen form, Bruce knew this was only the beginning. The Pakled would not rest until humanity was ashes. And he would not rest until they were nothing but a memory, a cautionary tale whispered in the dark reaches of space. With the bioweapon data in hand and Dr. Sorensen secured, Bruce and Phantom Squad raced through the facility's twisting corridors, alarms blaring in their wake. Pakled reinforcements were closing in, the thud of their boots echoing off the metal walls. "Move, move," and Bruce barked, his rifle at the ready as they burst into the hangar bay. Their stolen shuttle waited, engines primed. They piled aboard, Bruce slamming the hatch controls as energy bolts sizzled past. The shuttle leapt from the bay, engines straining as it clawed for the stars. In the cockpit, Bruce wrestled with the controls, coaxing every ounce of speed from the protesting craft. Behind them, Pakled fighters swarmed like angry hornets, their cannons spitting fire. "Hold on!" Bruce yelled as he wrenched the shuttle into a dizzying spiral, the G-forces crushing them into their seats. The Pakled ships overshot, their formations scattering. It was the opening they needed. With a final desperate push, the shuttle leapt to FTL, the stars stretching into lines as they left the Pakled facility far behind. But there was no time to celebrate. Earth needed them, needed the cure that Dr. Sorensen carried. They pushed their battered ship to its limits, racing home. They arrived to find Earth under siege, Pakled warships darkening the skies. Bruce and his team were immediately deployed to the front, tasked with holding the line as Dr. Sorensen and her team worked feverishly to synthesize the cure. The battles were brutal, desperate. Bruce led from the front, his rifle barking, his armor scorched and dented. Around him, his squad fought with grim determination, turning back wave after wave of Pakled troops. But something had changed. The Pakled were fighting with a ferocity they'd never shown before, their tactics more cunning, their weapons more advanced. They seemed to anticipate every human move, countering with devastating precision. In the chaos of battle, Bruce glimpsed something that chilled his blood. Among the Pakled ranks, towering figures in midnight armor, their forms wreathed in shadow. They moved with a speed and grace that was utterly inhuman, cutting through human soldiers like a scythe through wheat. A terrible realization dawned. The Pakled weren't acting alone. Something else was guiding them, something ancient and dark. Bruce had faced many horrors in this war, but nothing like this. Nothing like the Void Wraiths. As he fought on, desperation fueling every shot, every swing of his blade, Bruce could only pray that Dr. Sorensen would succeed. For if she failed, if the cure was lost, then all the sacrifices, all the lives spent, would be for nothing. On Earth, in a fortified lab deep beneath the surface, Dr. Sorensen worked tirelessly, her eyes bloodshot, her hands shaking with exhaustion. Around her, her team labored with equal fervor, driven by the knowledge that every second counted, that every delay meant more lives lost. Finally, as the battles above reached a crescendo, as Bruce and his squad stood on the brink of annihilation, the breakthrough came. The cure was ready. Dr. Sorensen watched, her heart in her throat, as the first doses were administered to the suffering, to those ravaged by the Packled's vile bioweapon, and one by one they began to recover. The fever broke, the lesions faded, the pain receded. It was a miracle, a triumph of human ingenuity and perseverance, but even as the news spread, even as hope rekindled in the hearts of the embattled defenders, Bruce knew that their trials were far from over. For the Void Wraiths had revealed themselves, and their true agenda remained a mystery. The Pakled were mere pawns, disposable foot soldiers in a far grander conflict. As he stood on the battlefield, his armor battered, his spirit weary but unbroken, Bruce knew that the greatest challenge was yet to come. The war had changed, the stakes had risen, and the fate of not just Earth, but the entire galaxy hung in the balance. They had won a battle, but the war was just beginning. With the truth of the Void Wraith's insidious influence laid bare, Bruce and Phantom Squad steeled themselves for their most dangerous mission yet. They would strike at the heart of the Pakled Empire, a heavily fortified command center deep within enemy territory. It was there, intel suggested, that they would find the key to unraveling the Void Wraith's hold on the Pakled. The infiltration was a brutal affair, every step forward paid for in blood and sweat. The command center's defenses were formidable, a gauntlet of automated turrets, energy barriers, and Void Wraith-enhanced Pakled soldiers. These augmented warriors moved with unnatural speed and strength, their bodies twisted by the alien presence within them. Phantom Squad fought with grim determination, their weapons blazing, cutting a path through the enemy ranks. Bruce led from the front, his plasma rifle spitting death, his armor scorched and dented. They pushed deeper into the facility, past shattered barricades and over the corpses of fallen foes. In the command center's core, they found a sight that chilled even the most battle-hardened among them. The Void Wraiths weren't just manipulating the Pakled, they were consuming them, using their bodies as hosts. Pakled officers hung suspended in pulsing organic cocoons, their bodies withered husks, their minds subsumed by the alien intelligence. Bruce's mind raced, piecing together the horrifying truth. The Void Wraiths were using the Pakled as a conduit, spreading their influence like a plague throughout the galaxy. If they weren't stopped, no race, no world would be safe. He knew what had to be done. The Void Wraith's connection to the Pakled had to be severed, and there was only one way to do it. Bruce fought his way to the command center's communications array, a vast, pulsing mass of biotech and Pakled machinery. With a few quick keystrokes, he patched into the Pakled fleet's comm network. He took a deep breath, then began to speak. His voice carried to every ship, every soldier under the Void Wraith's thrall. "This is Bruce Mitchell of the Human Resistance. I know you can hear me. I know the truth about your masters. The Void Wraiths are not your allies. They're your destroyers. They're using you, consuming you, turning you into puppets for their own twisted ends." He paused, letting his words sink in. "But you can fight back, you can resist their control. You're Pakled, proud and strong. Don't let these parasites use you any longer. Rise up, fight for your freedom, for your very souls." For a moment there was silence. Then a cacophony of voices, Pakled voices, filled the comm channels. Confusion, anger, defiance. The emotions poured out, raw and powerful. On the command center's screens, Bruce watched as Pakled ships began to turn on each other. Some still under the Void Wraith's sway, others fighting to break free. The Pakled Empire, once a unified juggernaut, was tearing itself apart from within. Seizing the moment, the human resistance struck. Across Pakled space, human ships and soldiers launched a coordinated assault, targeting key strongholds and infrastructure. Bruce and Phantom Squad spearheaded the offensive, striking at the Pakled High Command, the Void Wraith's primary conduits. The battles were fierce, desperate, but with each blow the Void Wraith's grip on the Pakled weakened. The invaders, once so sure of their victory, now scrambled to maintain control, their plans unraveling. In the chaos, Bruce found himself face to face with a horror beyond imagining. The Overseer, the leader of the Void Wraiths, a twisted, malevolent being that pulsed with an otherworldly energy. The confrontation was not one of weapons and physical might, but of minds and wills. The Overseer assaulted Bruce's very psyche, dredging up his deepest fears and doubts, tearing at his sanity with razor-edged thoughts. But Bruce was no stranger to inner demons. He had faced them before, in the dark nights after each battle, each loss. He met the Overseer's onslaught with a mental fortitude born of hard-won experience, of the unbreakable bonds of comradeship and shared struggle. In that moment, Bruce wasn't just fighting for himself. He was fighting for his squad, for the Resistance, for every race threatened by the Void Wraith's hunger. He was fighting for the very soul of the galaxy. With a final wrenching effort, Bruce broke the Overseer's hold. The alien recoiled, its form flickering, its power diminished. Bruce pressed his advantage, driving the invader back, out of his mind and into the void. Around him the battle still raged. Pakled fought Pakled. Human fought Void Wraith, and the fate of countless worlds hung in the balance. But for the first time in a long, bloody struggle, Bruce felt a glimmer of hope. They had struck a blow against the darkness, had shown that unity and courage could triumph over even the most insidious of foes. The war was far from over, but they would fight on for Earth, for the Pakled, for all those caught in the Void Wraith's web. They would fight, and they would win no matter the cost. For in the end, that was the very essence of what it meant to be human, to stand, to struggle, to strive, even in the face of the unknown and the unknowable. In the heart of the Pakled command center, Bruce Mitchell stood locked in a psychic duel with the Overseer. The air crackled with energy as their minds clashed, a maelstrom of raw power and iron will. Bruce gritted his teeth, blood trickling from his nose as he strained against the Overseer's onslaught. The alien's thoughts were a twisted labyrinth, a nightmarish landscape of hunger and malice. But Bruce would not yield. He reached deep within himself, tapping into a reservoir of strength he never knew he possessed. In his mind's eye, he saw the faces of all those who had fought and died to bring them to this moment. Marcus, the refugees, the brave men and women of the Resistance. With a roar of defiance, Bruce surged forward, his psychic energy coalescing into a spear of pure, blinding light. He drove it into the heart of the Overseer's consciousness, severing the alien's connection to the Pakled in a single devastating strike. The Overseer reeled back, its form shimmering and distorting. It let out a shriek of rage and pain, lashing out with a wave of psychic force that threatened to shatter Bruce's mind like glass. But Bruce stood firm. He drew upon the hopes and dreams of every human soul, the collective will of a species that refused to be broken. He shaped that energy into a shield, a bulwark against the Overseer's fury. And then, with a final triumphant cry, Bruce unleashed a blast of psychic power that lit up the command center like a newborn star. It engulfed the Overseer, burning away its essence, banishing it back to the dark abyss from whence it came. As the light faded, Bruce slumped to his knees, exhausted but victorious. Around him the Pakled blinked and shook their heads, as if waking from a long and terrible dream. They looked upon their human foes not with hatred, but with confusion and dawning horror. Across the Pakled fleet, a ripple of change swept through the ranks. Void Wraith influence dissipated like smoke on the wind, and the Pakled, now free from their insidious control, laid down their arms in surrender. In the days that followed, a tenuous peace settled across the war-torn galaxy. But the wounds of the conflict ran deep. Worlds lay in ruins, entire populations decimated by the brutal fighting and the Pakled's bioweapon. The surviving Pakled grappled with the enormity of what they had done under the Void Wraith's thrall. Many could not bear the weight of their guilt and chose to exile themselves, seeking solace in the far reaches of space. For the human resistance, victory had come at a terrible price. They had fought and bled and sacrificed, and now they faced the daunting task of rebuilding from the ashes. Bruce and his fellow soldiers were hailed as heroes, but the accolades rang hollow in their ears. They had seen too much, lost too many friends. The scars they bore were not just physical, but emotional and psychological as well. In the end, Bruce knew that he could no longer remain a soldier. The war had taken something from him, something he could never regain. And so, with a heavy heart, he made the decision to leave the military behind and embark on a new path. He said his goodbyes to his comrades, to the men and women who had fought beside him through the darkest of times, and then he set out into the galaxy, not knowing where his journey would take him, but knowing that he had to find his own way to heal, to make peace with the ghosts of his past. As for the galaxy itself, it faced an uncertain future. The war had upended the old order, and now a new equilibrium had to be found. It would not be easy, forging lasting bonds of peace and understanding between the races after so much bloodshed and misery. But perhaps in time the scars would fade. Perhaps the hard-won lessons of the war would guide them toward a brighter tomorrow. A tomorrow where the sacrifices of heroes like Bruce Mitchell and the countless fallen would not be in vain. A tomorrow where the galaxy could, at last, know true and lasting peace. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.